episode 42 of the podcast. This week we're going to talk about how grooming behaviors and veterinary behaviors are all an elaborate game of let me touch you everywhere with stuff. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Neumeier-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, certified behavior consultant for canines, certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is where grooming and training meet. I was having a discussion with some groomers recently online, and one of the things that came up is, can we ask owners to work on grooming and vet behaviors? I mean, they can't possibly do it, right? They don't have the equipment, they don't have the right distraction levels, right? Will the dog have to learn it all in a shop or all in a hospital? So I'm going to say that in many ways that's true, but we shouldn't be telling customers that they can't help with this process or let them off the hook that easy. I want you to think about the behavior process. Let's strip it down to its most basic components, because I think we start thinking about, well, they don't have dryers and they don't have clippers and they don't have, the thermometer, they don't have these things. But when we strip it down to its most basic component, the grooming behaviors and the veterinary behaviors are a large and elaborate version of let me touch you everywhere with stuff. So think about that for a minute. Let me touch you everywhere, your entire body, every little teeny tiny nook and cranny with stuff and things. Some of those things are going to vibrate. Some of those things are going to make noise. Some of those things deposit water. Some of those things force air at you. But basically, we're touching you everywhere with stuff. Now, when we look at it as a behavior, that's when we can start to have owners try it and focus on it. Because a dog who is touched regularly with stuff and things is much better prepared when it comes into a new item like a clipper, or a new item like a dryer, or a new item like somebody reaching around them to hold off a vein for the veterinarian to be able to take blood. So when you think about stuff and things and touching all over, these are house pets. I think that this is a reasonable thing for most owners to be able to do. So if we're looking at that behavior, one of the ways that we can start dealing with that is to just talk to our owners. First of all, as an owner, you ask them, do you have a dog? Yeah. Do you own stuff? Yeah. If I'm at a customer's house and we're working on some of this, I'll sit on their sofa and manipulate their dog and get them moving around so that they can see, oh, I don't need to even work on brushing right now. This isn't about brushing or combing or picking out eyes. The basic beginning is sitting on the sofa and just taking things off the coffee table and touching their dog with it. Right? What kind of things are on your coffee table, right? You can reach your dog if you're sitting on the sofa. The average person can do that. They're sitting on the sofa, the dog is standing in front of them. You can reach them. If it's a very tiny dog, you can have them on the sofa with you or maybe up on a table, but they don't need a grooming table to be able to do it. And then you just start taking stuff off the coffee table. I've done this at plenty of customers' houses. Okay, well, let's see. We've got a remote. I'm going to just kind of move around your dog's body with the remote. A coaster, a jar candle, right? Getting them used to, I'm going to touch you everywhere, is the component that we're looking for from our owners. And some of those things are a little distracting, and that's good. So when we talk about it that way, then we also have to talk to them about the mood that we want, right? And that we're looking for calm, comfortable, and cooperative. So if our owners are now like, well, I have a dog, and I have stuff. Yeah, I own some stuff. Sometimes owners will say, well, I don't want him to think those things are toys. Excellent. Because we don't want the dog to think that our grooming equipment are toys either. Or the stethoscope, or the thermometer, or any of the other tools that we might use on your dog. None of those are toys. So this is actually a really pretty good way to get owners on board with, oh, I've got to think about this a little bit. I don't want the dog playing with these things. So I should probably backtrack a little and make this calm, comfortable, and cooperative. Now, another part of that is making sure that they realize you don't have to get any sort of mission done, right? This is just keep them calm, comfortable, cooperative, and you're touching them with the stuff on your coffee table. right? What could be more basic and simple for the average owner instead of talking even about brushing at this point, right? If the dog is really struggling with it and we're just getting them used to being touched all over. Like with puppies, right? I would rather have an owner who has a dog who is used to being touched all over and then gets the brushing lesson. Trainers, I want you to think about that. If you're teaching a puppy to be touched all over with just random stuff, well, it could be a lid for a can, it could be a bowl, it could be a dog toy, as long as they aren't allowed to play with it. That's a tricky one. That's actually kind of a high level, right? But if you think about we're going to play around with keeping the dog calm, comfortable, and cooperative. If they start getting a little worried, you pushed it a little bit too far. But instead of having owners thinking, oh, well, I've got to get this eye boogie out or I've got to clean his bum, get them used to, I'm just going to touch my dog with stuff. Stuff, right? Now, that's one of the ways to get an owner started and get them thinking. And sometimes I hear groomers talking about how they don't have the kind of distraction levels we have in a shop. And that is true. They do not. Our distraction levels are very different. However, we can work around distractions in a way that builds some skills that can be used in the grooming shop or in the vet office. So if we think about, all right, we're at home and we've been kind of sitting in front of the TV, maybe working on this, is the next step maybe I'm going to have you stand on a chair or I'm going to have you stand on the picnic table at the park while I work on a little bit. I have sometimes had people put their dog on the deck and then they sat on the steps of the deck to kind of mimic what would happen in a grooming shop where now you're at a different level with the dog working on things. You're touching them all over with stuff that maybe now vibrates, right? So you think about like an electric toothbrush. An old electric toothbrush isn't really all that expensive. I think you can pick some up pretty cheap and just have like or maybe like the beard trimmer with a guard on it that you're not actually touching the dog with the trimming part. You're just kind of But we have plenty of ways. I know tech talk, right? But we have plenty of ways to get them used to some weird sounds. But also, as somebody who goes into people's homes and does training with them, most people have some pretty big distraction levels at their house. You would want them to start off while things are pretty calm. But the average house has some pretty hefty distraction levels that we can choose to work with. If I have my dog in front of me and my husband's playing with the other dog, right, that's a pretty big distraction level. If I have a squeaky toy that I toss while I'm trying to take care of, touching them on their backside, that's pretty big distraction level. Even turning on a TV really loud or getting on the computer, looking up YouTube videos of dogs barking. Oh, that's a fun one to do. So I think that when we look at the behavior itself, stripped down, this elaborate process of let me touch you everywhere with stuff is actually something that owners can work on, even if it's not the exact context. Because once you get a dog used to, oh, they're going to lift my leg up. I mean, that's how you touch me with stuff underneath a leg, right? That's how you get into an armpit with your coaster. So we're going to do that. And they're used to that process and they're used to being touched that way. They're very different when a groomer tries to do it or when the vet tries to do it and they realize, oh, this is familiar to me, but you have one little component that's unfamiliar. And maybe that's the tool. Okay. So I think that when we talk about helping a dog to be calm for it, and being exposed to being touched that way, a lot of owners just don't know that touching their dog is super important. I mean, they pet their dog, but they aren't thinking having him stand and like looking underneath his thigh is a big important thing. So if we just make sure they know, just tell them like, hey, this is how we do it. So touch them all over with stuff and things. You'll figure out on your own as an owner that that's easier to do if they're standing. And you'll find that they sit a lot and stuff, and you stand them back up again. That's okay. That's pretty normal stuff for a groomer. That's pretty normal stuff for a vet. So when we think about the behavior stripped down, it's a little bit different than thinking about owners don't have a 7-blade that they're going to run over their whole dog, or snap-on comb, or they're not going to have a dryer that runs over everywhere. But we still have noises, and we still have touching. And I find that dogs that are used to being touched, it makes a big difference. If you're enjoying my podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Now, I know I've really oversimplified the behavior, but let's draw a parallel. Heel work, at its most basic, is a dog walking at your left, right in line with your heel. They match your speed, and when you stop, they sit. When you ask them to get into position, they get into position, right? I mean, it's far more elaborate than that, but that's its basic. That's its base, right? So think about grooming behaviors and vet behaviors at their base is let me touch you all over with stuff, just like heel is stay beside me in this position and do these things with me, right? We can make it really elaborate, but we always start off with something quite small. And I think that that's okay. And I think owners are willing to do it. We often see vet behaviors that are, or zoo behaviors that are very elaborate and, let me have the tiger put their arm through, the cage enclosure so that we can touch toes. These are house pets. We need to be thinking about how house pets are living with us and they are sleeping on the sofa with us, right? They live in our houses. We can touch them all over. And if you cannot touch your dog all over, this is the kind of thing that you would work on with a trainer's supervision. Like really come up with some really direct information for your specific individual learner, your own animal, and help that process be as safe as possible. But the average dog is getting touched. So why not just teach them some grooming stuff while we're at it and not have to worry about having the brush out or the comb out or doing anything in particular. Once owners have something in particular they think they need to do, that's when it falls apart. That's when they stop thinking about the behavior and they stop thinking about the goal of calm, comfortable, and cooperative, and they get into some turmoil there, right? They start fighting a little bit. Just tell them, I want you to touch them all over with stuff. Show them, like, hey, look, let's just, here's a piece of paper on the desk, rubbing it over your old dog, right? So be thinking about things that we can ask customers to work on that are doable for them and that it makes a big difference. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story about my own guy. One of my guys came to me. He was almost 3. And he thought it was really weird if anyone was petting him and reached kind of behind his shoulder blades. Like, why would anyone touch a dog there? Right? I mean, he was clearly loved. He was very friendly. He loves people. But he didn't know what to make of that. So he had to learn about, okay, we're going to touch your hips. We're going to touch your back end. It really only took a short amount of time for him to be very, very comfortable with us doing it. And then we started working on okay, I'm going to reach around you and hold you close as if to lift you. I wasn't lifting him yet, but you think about the closeness that we need to lift a dog. Groomers, I think you understand that, but let me describe it better for owners and for other dog pros. But if you're going to lift a dog and you're a groomer and you're using your back every day, you want this to be the safest version of a lift possible. So what we do is we hold the dog close to our body. It's kind of a squeeze, right? That's going to help brace that dog up against your body and then lift them up and put them on a table or into a tub or out of a tub or off of a table. Lifting is really important for a lot of dogs in that environment. Sometimes it's being lifted into a crate. Sometimes it's being lifted out of a crate or being passed from an owner to a person. But holding them close, a lot of dogs aren't used to that. I can think of a number of times when I had maybe a golden retriever who was like, whoa, what is happening? Because they don't get lifted at home. We can talk to our owners about, hey, this is the way we lift him here. Even if you can just get beside him and reach around him, put one arm under his belly and one arm around his front and hold him close and make him like that. To get them used to it, oh, this is just something we do, then we can have something we can work with in the grooming environment. And I think that that's really, really a core skill so that they start getting used to this is not threatening. They're not reaching around me. I'm not caught in a trap. I can handle this. So when you think about the skills that we need are things that owners can work on, and then we'll just refine it when we get it into the shop. Because what kind of things are going to be added? What kind of distractions are going to be added? Well, now it's a groomer or a vet tech who's going to be wrapping their arms around that dog, holding them close to their body, and probably lifting them up. Or holding them close to their body and holding them close so that they can draw blood. Right? That's a distraction level or a difficulty level because now it's a different person. But if everything else is fairly familiar, if being touched all over with whatever weird objects are sitting around the house is familiar, they're not as likely to have an issue when that weird object is a clipper or when that weird object is a comb. So be thinking about ways that we can help our owners help us, right? We want these dogs to be good, and the owners do too. They don't understand why. We need to help them understand that, and that's a number of different episodes covered that. So I hope that this recording is okay because I am actually recording on vacation in a campground, and I think everyone stopped nailing things and stopped grommeting and stopped putting in posts and during my recording. Hopefully it turned out okay. I'm going to try again next week, but I'm having some tech problems here out in the woods of Pennsylvania. But having a fun vacation, and I really wanted to make sure you guys still get your podcast. So everybody, have a great week and stay curious. If you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my grooming and training business, happycrittersdogtraining.com, my email, chrissy@happycritters.net, and through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook page. And we have these awesome devices in our pockets that allow us to do live video with each other. I can help you with the dog on your table. We can set up live lessons, and you may be surprised at how much we can get accomplished together via video.